understanding, and that the imagination in Kantian language, the imagination is that which brings together understanding, the faculty that produces concepts, and sensibility, which gives experience to concepts. I don't actually think that that's correct at all, because we find similar language at various places in Breton and other surrealists. There's a really splendid document that was published in the Œuvre Complète, Volume 1, a letter to Jacques Doucet. Jacques Doucet was the first great patron of the Surrealists, and in the letter to Jacques Doucet, Aragon gives an incredible outline for both of them of their reading of Kant's first critique, and the way in which Kant is important to them. I don't say that Kant is as important to them as Hegel, but I'm saying this language is monnaie courante, it's currency. Rather, I think that the concept of the imagination is one that derives from Schiller. And here it's important that for us to realize that Herbert Marcuse's first doctoral dissertation, Germany being German, you have to do more than one doctoral dissertation, was on the German artist novel. In other words, he has a fundamentally German romantic concept of the artist as a being of refusal, as a standalone, and the imagination, as it were, is that activity. Broadly speaking, he looks at this, the imagination, as in ethico-political terms, that gives us a post or late romantic image of the artist who has a particular language of negation. Rosemont found this correct, but also, and I believe correctly, limited, and largely because of the implicit limitations that come out in the understanding of the imagination in purely romantic terms. Earlier, I quoted Herbert Marcuse as saying that we want to approach things like the Surrealists. We want to have an approach to things and actions without their exchange value. Another passage that I'd like to quote is from L'Autrement. Poetry must be made by awe. One of the most famous passages from L'Autrement. And of course, whenever we speak of L'Autrement, and now is an enormous biography that came out a few years ago that doesn't mention the Surrealists at all, interestingly, it's possible. Whenever we mention L'Autrement, it's the Surrealist L'Autrement. Whenever we say that certain phrases, certain sentences or sententiae have become famous, they've been made famous by the Surrealists. And this phrase, La poésie doit être faite par tout, right? Poetry must be made by all, becomes the hinge for the disagreement between Marcuse and the Rosemont and the Chicago and French, post-dissolution French surrealists around, as I keep saying, Vincent Gounod. And this links to the idea of approaching things without exchange value. This points us, in other words, to the role of consumer society. The disagreement, I do not believe that there is any way to avoid this. The disagreement is total on this point. In brief, it's about the degree to which or not workers have been integrated into the consumer society. It is also a disagreement, relatedly, about the role of popular culture. Right? From the correspondence, page 34, Rosemont writes that he and his friends, so remember that in 1989, so there's a retrospective quality to this, thinking about their disagreements, thinking about what they did and did not understand about where Marcuse was coming from. One of the things he says is that they did not understand, they did not know of, he says we were ignorant of, the debate in the 1920s and 30s in France and Germany, but particularly in Germany, about relationship between art and Marxism, art and revolution. In England, the England of my undergraduate days, the volume called Aesthetics and Politics was the book that introduced us to that specifically German debate. Right? And Rosemont is saying, we knew nothing about that debate, but now he realizes, subsequently, après coup, he realizes that this is where Marcuse was coming from. So, in these debates, Surrealism had figured only peripherally at best, and generally not at all. Marcuse, toward the end of